If you want to know how to program a shooting mechanic in Unity, you have come to the right place, so stay tuned. In this scene I have prepared targets with colliders and a player with a very simple movement script and a weapon. If you want to know how to program a movement script, just have a look in the description. Okay, let's start with the shooting mechanic, and that basically consists out of two things: a weapon and a projectile itself. Okay, let's start by creating the projectile. For this we use a simple sprite capsule. You can of course use your own sprites or models. I give this capsule a collider and a rigid body 2D, where I turn off the rotation and forbid movement on the y-axis to have no bullet drop later. Now we still need to drag the projectile down here into the folders to make it a prefab. Why do you ask? It's simple. We want to be able to select this projectile as ammunition for our weapon later, and for that we need to have it stored somewhere. Now let's create the weapon script. This script should spawn a certain object at a certain position when you press the left mouse button. For this we will need three variables. Bullet spawner is a transform. We will use this to get the position of the weapon. Ammo is a game object. We can use this to access an object and influence or spawn it, as I do here. Cooldown is a bool, which is a data type that can be true or false, and we will use it to check if you are allowed to shoot or not. Okay, let's program the three functions now. In the update function I created a simple query for the left mouse button. So every time the left mouse button is pressed and you don't have a cooldown, the following things will happen. The function to fire a bullet is called, then it is signaled that you have cooldown and you aren't allowed to shoot anymore, and then a function is called which turns the cooldown off again after exactly 0.2 seconds. In the function fire bullet we use the instantiate command. This spawns a certain game object at a certain position with a certain rotation. And we spawn the projectile of course, at the position and with the rotation of the weapon. In the run cooldown function, the cooldown is simply switched off again. This function is called by the invoke command. Invoke simply calls a function after a set time. Okay, that's it with the script of the weapon. Now we just have to go into the scene and create an empty game object as a spawner that we attach to the weapon. Then we give the weapon script and drag the prefab of the projectile as well as the spawner into the right places. And now we can quickly test it. Okay, let's continue with the projectile script. For this we create a new script and create four variables. Force is simply a number that will tell us with what force the projectile should be shot. Hit is again a bool which we will use to check if the projectile has hit something. RB is a rigid body 2D and weapon is again a game object. Alright so far, let's get started. We have to do two things in the start function now. First we have to find our weapon and check if the projectile is to the left or to the right of it. And depending on the result, a force is triggered on the rigid body of the projectile to shoot it in the right direction. To find the weapon we use the GameObject.findObject with tag command. As a tag we just use weapon. In the two if functions we compare the X positions of the weapon and the projectile and decide the direction in which the projectile should fly. In order to shoot, a force with the power specified in the variable force is released on the projectile in the form of an impulse. If you are making a 3D game you can save this work and directly write the function with the vector3.forward. Okay, almost done. Now only the despawning of the projectile is left. For this we create the following two functions. Delete bullet simply deletes the projectile, and on collision enter 2D is triggered when the projectile makes contact with a collider, which then turns the bool hit to true. In the update function we check the state of hit. If it is true, the bullet should be deleted immediately, and if hit is false, the bullet should disappear automatically after 2 seconds. Now we quickly go into the scene and give the weapon a tag that must be called exactly as we have defined it in the code, and then drag the projectile script onto the projectile, and now we can test it. And hey, it works! Okay, if you want to know how to make the shots the damage, watch this video here, where you can learn how to program the easiest damage system in Unity. Feel free to leave a thumb up if I could teach you something, and feel free to suggest a topic for another video in the comments. Until next time, and ciao!